in the heart of a deep emerald forest, where the sun filtered through leaves like golden lace, a strange stillness settled over the treetops. The morning wind rushed through the canopy, bending branches and rustling feathers, yet one small bird remained perched on a narrow branch, unmoving. Her wings trembled but did not open. Her eyes, usually bright as dew on a daisy, were filled with something heavy, something lost. The other birds soared above her, slicing through the sky in joyful loops, their feathers flashing in the sunlight. They dipped and danced on the wind, like leaves in a breeze. But she, the little blue bird named Luma, only clung to the branch, her tiny claws tight, her chest rising and falling too fast. A squirrel leapt from one tree to another, pausing beside her branch to nibble on a nut. He tilted his head, as if wondering why she didn't follow the others, but Luma couldn't explain. She only closed her eyes, trying to remember what it felt like, the thrill of rising, the rush of wind, the freedom of the sky. But her wings stayed folded, her body remembered fear instead. Below, the forest stirred with life. Deer moved quietly through ferny shadows, bees danced among blossoms, and somewhere far off, the sound of a bubbling stream laughed its way over smooth stones. But high in the treetops, Luma stayed still, her heart too full of something she couldn't name. The sky called to her, wide and blue, but something inside her whispered louder, "Don't fall!" And so she stayed. Not one bird noticed the quiet one who no longer flew. Not yet. Days passed. Then weeks. The trees grew heavier with fruit, and the sun warmed the earth with longer golden fingers. Luma watched from her branch as the other birds played games in the sky. They raced the clouds and chirped with delight as they soared higher and higher, their laughter carried on the wind. Luma only blinked, her wings folded tight against her sides, as though even the thought of lifting them was too heavy. She had not always been this way. Once, she had been the fastest flyer in the skyroot grove. She had raced falcons and glided above storms. Her feathers had shimmered like sapphires when she flew through sunlight, and her songs could make the flowers bloom early. But all of that had changed on the day of the storm. That day had started like any other, warm and full of light. Luma had taken to the skies early, eager to chase the dawn. But the wind had shifted suddenly, turning sharp and wild. Dark clouds gathered faster than any bird could warn. Luma had flown higher, trying to rise above the storm. Then came the thunder, a crack like the sky splitting open. Lightning, wind, a sudden drop. Her wings failed her. She remembered spinning, falling, trees rushing up at her, the snap of branches, then darkness. She had been lucky. The squirrels had found her in the ferns, her wing bruised, her breath shallow. They had cared for her in their hollow tree until her bones healed. But something else had broken that day, something deep inside her, something no one could see. Now, even though her wing had grown strong again, she could not bring herself to lift off. She remembered the fall too clearly. Her body stiffened with fear every time she thought of it. The sky, once her friend, had turned into a great, terrifying ocean. Still, the world moved on. Leaves turned amber at the edges. The birds began to whisper of the great migration, the journey beyond the mountains, to the valley of endless Sunday. Every year, all the birds of Skyroot flew together to that faraway place, where berries never froze, and the wind carried music even at night. Luma listened quietly as her friends planned their route, polished their feathers, and chirped excitedly about what they'd pack for the journey. They didn't ask if she would come. Not anymore. She tried to be useful in other ways. She gathered twigs for nests, helped young birds learn their songs, and even warned the owls when a fox prowled below. But every time her wings so much as fluttered, a tightness gripped her chest. One afternoon, as the birds practiced their flight formations in wide circles above the treetops, a young swallow named Kip landed beside her. He was small, clumsy, and still learning how to turn without tumbling sideways. He had noticed her watching, always watching. Without words, he nudged a shiny pebble toward her. It was shaped like a heart and caught the sunlight just right. Then he flapped his wings and leapt into the air only to wobble badly, dip too low, and crash into a clump of moss. Luma stared down, expecting him to cry. But Kip popped up, covered in dirt and giggling. He scrambled back up the tree and tried again, and again, and again. Each time he failed, he laughed a little harder, determined to try once more. Luma's feathers ruffled with something unfamiliar. Was it a smile? She wasn't sure. That night, she dreamed of flying, not falling, but flying. The kind of dream that felt like floating on music. She woke with her heart beating fast and her wings tingling. For a moment, she almost forgot why she had stopped. The next morning, the sky was full of color. The birds were gathering, ready for the journey. They chirped goodbyes and flapped in formation. Kip hovered near Luma's branch, wobbling as usual, but this time with purpose. He blinked up at her with wide, hopeful eyes. Then, without a sound, he soared upward with the others. Luma stood alone on her branch. The forest felt quiet. Too quiet. She turned and looked out across the treetops. In the distance, the clouds floated like cotton. The wind brushed gently over leaves, and the world opened up wide. A flutter tickled her feathers. A thought whispered, "Try!" But her claws clung tighter to the branch. Then, from far below, a sound echoed, a cry. Sharp and high-pitched, like a bird in trouble. Luma peered downward and spotted Kip caught between two branches. His wings stuck, struggling not to fall. The others were too far to hear. Without thinking, without fear, she leapt. Her wings flared wide. The wind caught beneath her like a friend returning after a long goodbye. She dove, heart-pounding, eyes locked on Kip. Her wings remembered. The sky held her. The fall didn't come. She reached Kip just as he began to slip. With one strong flap, she grasped the branch beside him and steadied him with her wing. Kip stared at her, stunned but safe. Luma guided him gently to the ground. Her chest was heaving, her wings trembled, but she had flown. She had flown. The moment stretched long and quiet. Kip chirped once, then again, this time, a happy note. Luma laughed, a soft musical trill like the wind dancing on water. Something inside her cracked and light poured through. That evening, as the sky turned orange and pink, Luma stood on a high branch again. The others had flown on ahead, but Kip stayed beside her, his wings still sore. Luma looked out toward the mountains. The valley of endless sun waited beyond. She didn't feel ready. Not quite, but maybe, almost. She flapped her wings slowly, carefully. Her feathers hummed. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't afraid. Not of the sky, not of the fall, not of flying. And somewhere inside her, a new thought took root. Not just I can, but I will. She would follow the others. Not today, maybe not even tomorrow, but soon. And when she did, she would soar. That night, the forest curled into silence. A soft wind brushed through the trees like a whisper, and the moon rose, wide and gentle, casting silver light on the branches where Luma and Kip slept side by side. The stars blinked like shy fireflies in the vast sky. Luma opened her eyes. Her wings ached not from pain, but from the memory of flight. She could still feel the air beneath them, strong and steady. It had carried her, truly carried her, but the feeling didn't last. As the cold hours crept in, so did the fear. What if it had been luck? What if next time she didn't glide, but dropped? The memory of falling returned, sharp as thorns. That terrible moment when the sky had vanished and the earth had rushed up like a monster. Her feathers twitched, her heartbeat quickened. She closed her eyes again, but the darkness behind her lids felt deeper than night. Inside her, two voices whispered. One said, "You flew once, you can fly again." The other hissed, "You barely made it, you'll fall again. You're not ready." Dawn broke in golden threads. Kip stretched beside her and chirped sleepily, then winced as his wings shifted. He would not be flying for days, maybe longer. Luma watched him with quiet eyes. The others were far ahead now, their songs only echoes in the wind. She should have felt peace. She was safe. She had flown again. She had saved someone. But peace didn't come. Instead, there was a tug inside her chest. A restlessness. A call. High above, the sky was clear. The air shimmered with promise. And somewhere beyond the trees, past the river and the cliffs, lay the Valley of Endless Sunday, a place of warmth, color, and song. The birds who reached it first would get the best nests. The ripest fruit, the gentlest breezes. Kip couldn't go, but Luma could. Couldn't she The question burned. The sun climbed higher. Luma paced along the branch, her talons scraping the bark. She flapped her wings, once, twice. The wind tugged at her feathers, playful, as if urging her on. She looked down at Kip. His head was tucked beneath his wing again. The forest stirred below, unaware. Luma took a deep breath and leapt. The air caught her instantly. She tilted slightly, dipped, then leveled. Her wings spread wide, steady this time. The trees swayed beneath her as she rose higher. Her chest heightened with every flap, not from fear now, but effort. Her muscles burned, her heartbeat pounded. But she didn't stop. She flew, faster than before, stronger. Each beat of her wings pushed the doubt further behind her. The forest gave way to cliffs, jagged and gray. The wind howled louder here, and the air turned colder. Sharp currents tugged at her wings. She wobbled once, caught in a swirl, then steadied. The sky widened. She could see the ribbon of the river far below, and a line of distant mountains, hazy in morning light. Somewhere beyond those peaks was the valley, and just above the nearest ridge she saw them. The flock. Dots at first, then shapes. Dozens of birds slicing through the sky in graceful arcs. They were halfway to the valley, maybe more. She was behind, far behind. But she didn't turn back. She pressed on. The wind pushed harder now. Her feathers shivered in its grip. The climb to the ridge was steep. Her breath came faster. Her wings ached, but her eyes stayed forward. Higher, faster. The sky changed. Dark clouds gathered suddenly, just like the day of the storm. Luma's breath caught. She slowed. Memories surged. Thunder, lightning, falling, the sound of cracking branches. Her body shook. Below her, the forest thinned. A cliff edge loomed. The wind snapped. For a moment, it all came back. The terror, the helpless spinning, the fear that the sky would never hold her again. She hovered, heart pounding, wings beating in place. And the whisper returned. "You'll fall again. You're not meant to fly." She drifted lower. Then she saw something. A feather, floating, blue, like hers, spinning gently down from the sky. But it wasn't hers. It was Kip's, Dakira's Kip's. The memory rushed in, not the fall, but the moment she saved him. The strength in her wings, the steadiness of the air, the warmth in his eyes, the laughter when he stood again. Dirty but alive. "You flew. You can fly." She took a breath and surged forward. Into the wind, through the storm, past the fear. Raindrops stung her face. The air screamed in her ears. Lightning flashed, not near, but enough to light the sky. She didn't stop. Her wings moved like they remembered. Her eyes focused. Her fear shrank. She broke through the clouds and rose. The ridge came into view again, the last mountain before the valley. She flapped harder. One final push. The sky opened. And then, like a curtain being pulled back, the valley of endless sun unfolded beneath her. It was real. A place of golden fields and crystal ponds, trees heavy with berries, flowers as big as nests, warm breezes that carried songs from the cliffs. The flock had already arrived. They circled the valley in slow spirals, calling to one another with joy. Luma hovered at the edge, breathless. She had made it. She had flown. Not just once, not just for Kip, but for herself. And deep within her, something shifted. The fear was still there, a small echo, but it no longer ruled her. The sky belonged to her again. She glided into the valley, slow and steady. No race, no panic, just peace. Birds called out as she passed. Some remembered her. Some were surprised. Others nodded, with quiet respect. But Luma didn't need cheers. She had found her sky, and she was never going to let it go. Luma drifted gently above the valley, her wings at last steady. Below her lay the valley of endless sun, glowing with golden light, as if the world itself had tipped into warmth. Flowers of every color leaned toward the breeze, and ponds sparkled like mirrors under the sun. Trees heavy with ripest fruit bowed under the weight, and soft melodies rose from hidden streams. Luma glided lower, brushing over petals that shivered with her passing. The valley felt alive, glad, and safe. She landed softly on a branch of sunlit oak. her feathers shimmering in the light, still a little wet from rain. Around her waited the flock, familiar shapes, calls of welcome, bright eyes filled with surprise and relief. They circled her in gentle arcs, their wings beating in rhythmic greeting. A hush seemed to fall across the valley as they watched. Kip flew toward her, his wing healed but still tender, his eyes shining bright. He landed beside her, his tail feathers flicking with excitement. Other birds fluttered by, some who had teased her, some who had laughed when she remained behind, and some who had simply forgotten she wasn't with them. Now they all looked with wonder at the bird, who had flown through the fear and the storm, who had found courage again. Luma tilted her head, feeling a quiet pride that pulsed like warmth in her chest. She opened her wings slowly and flexed them once, twice. There was no trembling, there was only steadiness. The flock lifted as one and glided higher, weaving gentle arcs above the valley. Luma rose with them, flapping strong and true. The wind welcomed her with soft pats under her wings. She felt joy, a deep, humming joy in every beat. Around her, birds called in song, a swirling harmony of relief and delight. In that moment, Luma understood something deep fear can break, but courage can heal. Her wings had forgotten how to fly, but she had remembered how to hope. And in hope, she found her wings again. The flock settled into rings over the warm ponds, where willow trees drooped toward the water's mirror. Birds dipped to drink and to bathe. Luma fluttered down to a gentle pond and leaned close, pecking at a smooth pebble at the water's edge. In its reflection, she saw her feathers shining, her eyes bright. The pond seemed to shimmer with promise. Already the valley was offering new life. Kip landed beside her, damp from bathing, the sparkle in his eyes still there. He nudged another pebble, this one shaped like a star, a small, playful reminder of the journey. Luma pecked it and felt a smile grow inside her. It glowed warm like the sun. As the day deepened, the flock gathered berries high on the golden trees. They sang soft songs of thanks. Some birds built nests, weaving twigs with moss. Others practiced flight above the open meadows, racing the wind, touching cloud shadows. Luma flapped high too, her wings carrying her strong. She danced on the breeze, dipping and rising in slow arcs, testing every feather. Later, Luma rested on a branch overlooking the valley. The sky had turned to twilight, soft purple and pink. The sun sank low, casting long shadows. The flowers closed gently, and fireflies began to flicker at the edges of the grass. The pond below glowed with reflected twilight, and the willow branches waved softly. Kip fluttered beside her, quiet now. Luma leaned slightly toward him, offering friendship. She had saved him, and now he stayed beside her, not out of need, but because of trust and shared courage. A hush settled across the valley. Birds perched in clusters, preening feathers, settling down. A lullaby hummed in the wind. The valley seemed to breathe a gentle sigh of welcome. Luma rested her wings. A deep peace had settled in her bones. The fear that had ruled her felt small now, edged in shadow but soft. She closed her eyes and let the valley's calm surround her. Dawn would bring a new day, but tonight the sky was warm, the air safe, the world glad she had come. The moment stretched, still and sacred. Luma thought of the forest she had left behind Skyroot Grove and the day of the storm. She thought of the squirrels who nursed her and the young birds who learned their songs because she stayed. She thought of Kip, so determined, so full of life, even when he tumbled again and again. All of it had brought her here, to this place of promise and light. She understood then that courage is not a single act. It is a shape that bends and grows. It is the second breath after fear. It is the friendship that helps wings rise again. It is the choice to take that moment just one more try, not because you know what will happen, but because you know who you want to be. The stars appeared overhead, little glowing seeds scattered in the sky. The fireflies below mirrored them on earth. Luma gazed upward, her heart full. She felt small and yet strong, part of something big and gentle. The wind wrapped around her like a blessing. Some birds whispered of the journey ahead, how they would send scouts over the valley to see where the ripest fruit grew. Others spoke of nest building, new songs, future breathtaking flights across endless sunlit skies. Kip chirped softly about exploring the stream's hidden pools. Other birds nodded and flapped in agreement. Luma listened, her wings quiet now, her heart steady. She would join them. She would build, sing, and soar. She had remembered how to fly. She would never forget. The gentle night held them all, a lullaby of wind and crickets, of pond ripples and soft breath. Luma closed her eyes. She felt rooted in the valley, yet lifted in the sky. Safety and wonder entwined in the air. When she opened her eyes again, the wind brushed across her feathers in invitation. She stretched once more, softly, feeling the power in her wings. She didn't leap, she didn't push. She simply lifted a slow, graceful rise and drifted upward into the first night breeze. Around her, the flock soared too, shaping gentle patterns in the darkening sky. Their silhouettes turned silver in the light of the rising moon. The valley below glowed faintly in its own afterglow. Flowers drooped, pone shimmered, fireflies danced. Together they flew a quiet circle, a hymn of gratitude, healing, and belonging. Luma's flight was steady, peaceful, full of wonder. The hush in her chest had turned to gentle music. They descended again, landing softly on the oaks and willows near the pond. The birds nestled for sleep, tucking their wings and closing their eyes. Luma perched with Kip once more, head resting near his. The valley exhaled night. As she drifted toward sleep, she carried a thought. Bravery is not the absence of fear, but moving through it. Fear had taught her humility, courage taught her wings, trust had given her friendship, and hope had lifted her skyward. In the soft dark, Luma dreamed of flying higher still, of sunlight on distant fields, of the laughter of friends in the wind. The bird who forgot how to fly had learned that falling does not mean forever, that wings can heal, that the sky, wide and welcoming, waits to hold her again and again. And deep in her heart lay the valley's lesson, gentle, golden, endless as sunlight. Hope can return if one dares to lift a wing once more.